Today I am at the Mitchell Creek Nature Sanctuary, a property managed by the Grand Traverse Regional Land Conservancy. Now this trail isn't really a trail so much, it's a sanctuary, so wherever you go, it's more of a find your way sort of deal. There's a trail that goes into the sanctuary, but from that point on, it's just exploration with no official trails per se. And today, I am going to have my Panasonic Lumix FZ-10 with me again. I'm going to shoot exclusively today in black and white with a couple of different filters to further demonstrate what the FZ-10 can do. On colder days like today, one thing I do often is bring a second camera with me just in case the first one decides to bonk out for some reason. This is especially true of older cameras like the ones I tend to use. Today my backup camera is the Kodak EasyShare P850, which I had featured in a different video a couple of months ago. There's nothing worse than an ill-fitting backpack on a hike. That's better. For those of you who are joining me for the first time, my name is Adam Smith, and I am a nature and landscape photographer based out of the northern Michigan area. In addition to landscape photography, I also like to talk about cool nature stuff on occasion. And as I started walking this sanctuary, I noticed something that's very common to this region, which is called a gall, a G-A-L, a gall. Now this gall right in front of me here is the product of a little rascal of a little worm that squirms their way into the plant. As the plant is growing, the tissue of the plant wraps around it and swells up into a hard ball. And the larva lives inside there until it's ready to come out. And when it comes out, it leaves a little hole in here sometimes, as you can see the hole. And the hole is very evident in this guy right here. It looks like a bird might have got into there at some point. So that's what those are. If you see them hanging around in the woods or in the fields or whatever, those are little bugs that decide that they need to make their home there. For my first composition this morning, I'm going to shoot a fairly straightforward shot that involves the creek running along by my finger moving here. And then it's going to extend up to the branches, up into some of the sky. It's going to be a very soft, somewhat symmetrical shot. And to do so, I am going to use my neutral density graduated filter, which I will show a close-up of here in a second. A graduated neutral density filter is a filter that is great for exposing for high contrast areas such as snow and sky. There's darker spots on the filter, which is on the top of my filter setup, exposes for the sky, so the sky is a little bit darker, so you don't have to do two exposures or compromise with one area of the shot being overexposed or underexposed on the other side. This way you get the both the best of worlds in one shot. The filter threads on the adapter tube for the FZ series up until the FZ-30, which had an integrated filter thread and a smaller diameter up in the front. They had a 72 millimeter thread, which is from here to here measured, and my graduated density bracket only goes to a 67 millimeter. So to get up the difference, I basically just used good old electric tape, and I made a makeshift little holder so it stays in there so I could use this guy today. And I think this little rascal is going to work just fine. And of course, before I capture any images, I do need to clean off these filters. As you can see, snow is starting to accumulate all over the place. One of the best things about having numerous copies of the same camera model is the ability to switch out accessories without having to reattach and take things off. And that's the same thing with the FZ-10. I have another one which died on me a couple weeks ago. So I ordered another one, which also came with the lens hood adapter to keep the lens free of yuckies. And I'm putting that on right now, and I'm cleaning off the front of the filters a little bit with my glove. Alright, I think we're ready to shoot. For this first shot, I am also utilizing what's called the monopod. The monopod is a single leg that the camera attaches to on the front, or up at the socket, just like that. The great thing about these is they're light, they're easy to put in backpacks, and the bonus is they're great walking sticks when it gets snowy and hard to walk. One way to maximize your opportunities at any location is to compose different angles in your shots. So for the first shot I captured, it was at a fairly standard shoulder height level using my monopod. Now for the next shot, I am going to use my camera handheld, and I'm going to capture the image from a real low angle shooting up from the stream. So my camera is going to be literally like an inch away from the water, and I'm going to shoot up to get a more dramatic perspective on the same composition in the same area. So first, to do this, I got to take this rascal off of here and put that on that little dogwood as a little holding bracket, and here we go. Now I'm going to head off to an area of the sanctuary that leads to a clearing where last year, the year before, I captured a really pretty shot of some clouds rolling in with my Olympus SP570, which at some point I will bring out and use and show everyone. This is one of my favorite locations in this sanctuary to shoot at. Not so much because of what would traditionally be considered a good landscape composition, but because of what I think and what I feel makes me happy when I shoot the image. Sometimes in photography, I think there's too much emphasis on composition and proper techniques and rules and 5 tips and all these posts and blogs that say you're doing things wrong, you're doing things right if you do this. In my opinion, the right thing to do is what you think is the right thing to do. As long as you like the image and you feel joy when you capture it, that's all that matters. For my next image, I'm going to use my ND8 Panasonic neutral density filter instead of the graduated neutral density filter that I used for the first 2 shots in this video. For this shot, I'm going to adjust my settings on my camera. I'm using aperture priority mode right now on the camera, so which that means that the shutter speed is automatically going to be chosen by the camera, while the f-stop is going to be chosen by me. I think the f-stop at 5.2 is pretty good for these conditions, especially considering that I am using a ND8 neutral density filter, which definitely darkens the exposure, so you don't want to get too dark by adjusting that to get any bigger. A bigger number means that you're going to have a darker exposure if your shutter speed stays the same. While my f-stop or my aperture is going to stay the same from my last shot, what I am going to do is go up to the menu here, and I am going to change my light sensitivity, or my ISO, or ASA for some folks. Now let's see if I can do this going backwards here. Picture size is staying there, quality is staying there, spout mode is off, sensitivity, which is also ISO or light sensitivity or ASA. I'm going to switch that to 200 instead of 50, which means my image is going to be a bit grainier because the sensitivity or the gain on the sensor signal is going to go up a little bit. It's kind of like when you turn up the sound on your radio. It's the same kind of idea. I'm going to select that, and once you select it on these FZ series cameras, you just press menu, and it goes back to your shooting screen. Alright, going to walk over a little bit, use my monopod, and take a shot. As always, I'm so excited to see what those shots of that last location look like once I put them up on a big screen. That to me is one of the best things about landscape photography. It's the patience and it's getting out there and just getting the shot and just seeing what happens when you're done. Now for my last and final shot, I'm going to shoot or capture. You could use the word shoot, capture, whichever one works for you. I like to say capture more than shoot because it doesn't sound quite as violent. I'm going to capture an image of this cattail right here, which is symbolic to me of the northern Michigan wetland areas. And I think they just look cool. There's so much texture and shape and form to the cattails, especially this time of year when they start to shed their seeds or after they have in the fall season. To capture an image of this cattail fluff, the first thing I'm going to do is take off my ND8 neutral density filter I used in my prior shots. And to keep this filter from getting too mucked up, I'm going to utilize this little clever pocket here in my Eddie Bauer WeatherTech jacket, so it doesn't get sand and snow and whatnot on it, so I don't have to try to wipe it off as much. Okay, now I got that set. The next thing I'm going to do on my camera is switch to macro mode, which is, let's see here, on the mode dial of the camera, it's a little flower graphic right here. I'm going to switch it to that, which will help focus in a close-up distance. And the next thing I'm going to do is put on my viewfinder screen and check my aperture. I'm going to put my aperture back down, if I could here, if it'll let me. Maybe it won't in this mode. I take that back. I just learned something new about the FZ-10, which I think is different on the FZ-20, which I will be showing in a video coming up to follow along with my series of the Panasonic Lumix FZ series of bridge cameras. In macro mode, apparently I can't switch the aperture by myself, so I went back to aperture priority, and I switched my aperture back down to 2.8, so I get a shallower depth of field, which that means is there's going to be more softness in the background, and my focus is going to be primarily on the cattail. And one other thing I'm doing while I compose my shot is I'm trying to find a location where the backdrop to this cattail is a darker color. So there's a contrast between the dark and the light. And for my dark spot behind, I'm choosing a stand of pines to make the cattail pop. In my last video, I posed the question, what is landscape photography? Well, after some thought, I think landscape photography is a journey that allows the photographer to express themselves through interpretation of a landscape, to express joy, pain, anxiety, frustration, or any other emotion that they are feeling at that point in time. Landscape photography is an avenue for self-expression in its purest form. If you like this video and the images captured with the Panasonic FZ-10, please give this video a good old thumbs up and share it with your friends and family. I really appreciate that. Again, thanks so much, and until next time, get outside and get some fresh air.